In a surprising turn of events, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently declared a state of war against Hamas. This declaration came after an unprecedented attack by the Palestinian militant group, leading to the tragic loss of more than 800 Israeli lives over the weekend. In response, Israel has launched a series of devastating offenses in Gaza, resulting in the unfortunate loss of over 680 Palestinian lives. The roots of this intricate and deep-rooted conflict stretch back over 2 centuries. Since the establishment of Israel in 1948, it has faced numerous conflicts with Arab nations and Palestinian groups. The battle for control of the land between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River is a central point of contention for both Israelis and Palestinians. To fully understand how this conflict has evolved, we need to go back to the birth of the modern state of Israel in May 1948. While its creation was a response to the Holocaust and the aftermath of World War II, the origins of the ongoing discord between Israelis and Palestinians date back much further in history. As with most aspects of this intricate conflict, perspectives on its beginnings and consequences differ significantly, depending on one's point of view. The story of the Israel-Palestine conflict involves different historical angles. Some begin with the Romans, while others point to the late 19th century Jewish travel to the Ottoman Empire, driven by the desire to begin Zionism just to escape persecution in Eastern Europe. Alternatively, the British government's Balfour Declaration in 1917, supporting a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, is seen as a crucial moment, leading to conflicts with the Arab communities there. At the start of World War I, around 80% of the population in the region were Palestinian Arabs, with Jews making up roughly 10%. During World War I, the Allied powers had diverse and sometimes conflicting strategies for shaping the Middle East. Palestinians often mention the letters exchanged between Mecca's emir and the British High Commissioner in Egypt from 1915 to 1916. These letters, now known as the McMahon-Hussein correspondence, seemed to promise an independent Arab state after the war. By 1917, Britain had control over a significant part of the Middle East. In that year, Britain's Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour wrote a letter to Lionel Walter Rothschild, the head of the British branch of the influential European Jewish banking family. This letter consisted of just 67 words, but has been a highly debated document in modern Middle Eastern history. It committed Britain to establishing a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, and they pledged to facilitate this goal. The term national home had no precedent in international law. For Israelis, this letter represented the formal recognition of an Israeli state. Yet for the Palestinian majority, it signaled impending dispossession. The Balfour Declaration in 1917 insisted that it was made known that nothing should prejudice the religious and civil rights of the already existing non-Jewish people in Palestine, while the national home was being built for the Jewish people. In 1923, a British mandate for Palestine was put in place, lasting until 1948. During this time, a significant number of Jewish immigrants came to the region, with British assistance. Many of these newcomers were escaping the horrors of Nazism in Europe. For many, the key moment in the conflict's timeline is the United Nations' important vote in 1947, suggesting dividing land in the British Mandate of Palestine into 2 separate states, one for Jews and one for Arabs. This decision came after the tragic loss of European Jewry during the Holocaust. It's crucial to mention that both Palestinians and neighboring Arab nations strongly oppose the establishment of the modern state of Israel. Tensions grew, leading to armed clashes between Jewish militant groups, some of which the British considered as terrorist organizations, and Palestinian factions. The situation escalated when Egypt, Iraq, Transjordan, and Syria launched invasions after Israel declared independence in May 1948. After Israel's new military made significant progress, an armistice agreement in 1949 marked the creation of practical borders. These borders gave the fledgling Jewish state considerably more territory than originally outlined in the UN partition plan. Around 700,000 Palestinians were either expelled or fled from the captured territory by Israel, which accounted for about 85% of the Arab population. Sadly, they were never allowed to return. The Palestinians refer to this tragic departure and the subsequent disruption of their society within Israel as the Nakba, which means catastrophe. It remains the pivotal and distressing event in their recent history. Arab citizens who stayed in Israel faced official discrimination and endured almost 2 decades of military rule that deprived them of basic civil rights. A significant portion of their land was taken away, and Arab-Israeli communities were intentionally kept economically disadvantaged. In a series of agreements signed in 1949, Israel and Arab nations assigned control of the Gaza Strip to Egypt, while Jordan took charge of the territory that would later be known as the West Bank. In July 1956, the Egyptian president nationalized the Suez Canal, a crucial trade route which resulted in Israel being cut off from shipping. Hamas came into existence in 1987 during the initial Palestinian uprising against Israeli military control over the West Bank and Gaza. Iran provided financial support, weaponry, and training to Hamas. Israel, the United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and several other countries officially designate the group, or sometimes its military wing, as a terrorist organization. However, a 2018 United Nations resolution to label Hamas as a terrorist group did not pass. Regarding historical events, Israel, along with forces from Britain and France, invaded Egypt, including the Gaza Strip, in response to the nationalization of the Suez Canal. In January 1957, Israel withdrew from Egyptian territory, except for the Gaza Strip and the Gulf of Aqaba region, asserting that the Gaza Strip had never been under Egyptian ownership. Jordan took administrative control of the West Bank in 1950, while Egypt retained control over Gaza. This situation continued until the Six-Day War in 1967, when Israeli forces captured these territories. Before the Six-Day War, sporadic violence persisted, including notable incidents in various villages like Kalkilia, Kufr Qasim, and Khan Yunis in 1956, and As-Samu in 1966. In Cairo in 1964, the Palestinian Liberation Organization was established, and it committed to liberating Palestinians through a revolution with armed forces rather than bargaining. This stance led to the PLO being designated as a terrorist organization by both Israel and the United States. In 1974, it was recognized as the sole representative of the Palestinian people by the Arab League. In 1967, Israel's military moved into the Gaza Strip, West Bank, Golan Heights, and the Egyptian Sinai, sparking more violence. The UN Security Council passed Resolution 242, telling Israel to withdraw from these areas, but this didn't happen. After the Yom Kippur War, the Security Council issued Resolution 338, which called for a ceasefire and once again asked Israel to pull back from its 1967 moves. Again, Israel said no. On March 30th, 1976, Israeli land takeovers led to protests, strikes, and violent clashes in towns from the Sea of Galilee to the Negev. Palestinians remember this date as Land Day. A ray of hope for Middle East peace came in September 1978, when Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin met with President Anwar Sadat to sign the Camp David Accords at President Jimmy Carter's retreat in Maryland. One part of this agreement improved relations between the two countries and won them the Nobel Peace Prize. However, the part about the future of disputed Palestinian territories was criticized by the UN for not involving Palestinian representatives. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon. At the same time, the First Intifada began in Palestinian territories, with protest against occupation gaining strength as the 80s ended. Although there were some steps toward peace, like the PLO recognizing Israel and agreeing to UN Resolutions 242 and 338, talks hit roadblocks in 1991 and 1992, and a final solution remained out of reach. The Oslo I Accord, signed in the summer of 1993 by Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat, set the stage for creating a Palestinian interim self-government, which was known as the Palestinian National Authority. It also outlined the withdrawal of Israeli defense troops from areas that were widely considered to be occupied. Subsequently, Oslo II in 1995 granted Palestinian autonomy in specific parts of the West Bank and Gaza, but did not fully give statehood to Palestine. A shaky peace held until the start of the Second Intifada in 2002, leading to Israel's reoccupation of West Bank cities. Arafat's death in 2004 was a significant setback for the Palestinian cause. Since then, the region has seen a resurgence of violence, with Israel engaging in conflicts with the Hezbollah in Lebanon in 2006 and launching repeated military operations against Hamas in Gaza, including Operation Cast-led 2008, Operation Pillar of Defense 2012, and Operation Protective Edge 2014. In addition, violence broke out on Nakba Day in both 2017 and 2018, with the latter incident serious enough to prompt a UN war crimes investigation. The election of Donald Trump as US president brought changes to the situation, with Trump forming close ties with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump's decision to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and recognize the Golan Heights as Israeli territory, diverged from the broader international consensus on these matters. He also reduced U.S. funding to UNRWA and entrusted his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, with the task of formulating a Middle East peace plan. In 2021, there was tension during Ramadan, leading to clashes when Israeli police entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. This resulted in injuries to hundreds of Palestinians. As Israel did not remove its security squads from the mosque, Hamas fired rockets from Gaza into Israel, leading to an 11-day conflict that caused a minimum of 250 deaths in Gaza and 13 in Israel. In 2022, a series of Palestinian attacks led to 14 Israeli deaths. Between March 22nd and April 8th, clashes resulted in at least 166 Palestinian deaths in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. In August, Israeli airstrikes targeted an Islamic Jihad commander, causing at least 44 casualties, including 15 children. In response, Islamic Jihad fired over 1,000 rockets at Israel, but the Iron Dome system prevented major damage or casualties. Throughout 2022, Israeli forces killed 146 Palestinians in the West Bank, the highest annual death toll since the UN began recording in 2005. Israel's foreign ministry reported 29 Israeli deaths that year. In January 2022, Islamic Jihad in Gaza launched 2 rockets at Israel after an Israeli raid on a refugee camp, resulting in the deaths of 7 Palestinian gunmen and 2 civilians, with no casualties from the rockets. In May 2022, Israel carried out surprise airstrikes in Gaza, targeting top militants and others, including women and children. This led to a brief surge in violence, resulting in at least 33 casualties in Gaza and 2 in Israel. This year, Israeli military forces conducted operations in the Palestinian city of Jenin on several occasions. Following these operations, Israeli settlers engaged in violent acts in Palestinian villages, setting houses and vehicles on fire and targeting residents with gunfire, as reported by local authorities. Also, Israel conducted its first drone strike in the West Bank since 2006, resulting in deaths of 3 presumed militants. On October 8th, Hamas launched an unusual attack on Israel. Their soldiers infiltrated communities near the Gaza Strip, leading to over 900 Israeli casualties and the taking of dozens of hostages. In response, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced war on Hamas and launched airstrikes that resulted in the deaths of over 680 Palestinians. Israel also imposed a complete siege on Gaza, depriving the territory of access to food, electricity, and fuel. The nation rallied 360,000 reservists. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees reported that more than 187,000 people were transferred past the Gaza Strip, and this number is proposed to rise. What do you think about this ongoing war? If you like this video, click on the screen to watch other videos like this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to get notified when we post a new video.